أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. We will start our virtual rally from Quran recitation. I would like to invite Brother Bilal to mesmerize us from the holy verses of Quran.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Brother Farman. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنري من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير. وآتينا موسى الكتاب وجعلناه هدى لبني إسرائيل ألا تتخذوا من دون وكيلا ذرية من حملنا مع نوح إنه كان عبدا شكورا. وكذينا إلى بني إسرائيل في الكتاب لتفسدن في الأرض مرتين ولتعلن علوا كبيرا. فإذا جاء وعد أولاهما بعثنا عليكم عبادا لنا أولي بأس شديد فجاسوا خلال الديار وكان وعدا مفعولا. ثم رددنا لكم الكرة عليهم وأمددناكم بأموال وبنين وجعلناكم أكثر نفيرا. إن أحسنتم لأنفسكم وإن أسأتم فلها. فإذا جاء وعد الآخرة ليسوءوا وجوهكم وليدخلوا المسجد كما دخلوه أول مرة وليتبروا ما علوا تتبيرا. عسى ربكم أن يرحمكم وإن عدتم عدنا وجعلنا جهنم للكافرين حسيرا. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Thank you so much, Brother Bilal, for such a beautiful voice and beautiful verses. Thank you for joining a very special and historic Al-Quds live virtual rally. Despite COVID-19, we continue a tradition of vibrant, diverse rally held each year in Toronto by peace-loving Canadians. We miss being together on the streets, hearing our united voices. To advocate for peace, we raised slogans to condemn Zionist brutality against Palestinians. We came out on the streets, reminding ourselves, people around us, and Zionist regime about Nakba. 72 Nakba was past Friday. We will not forget and continue to work for justice, for liberation of Palestine. Nakba refers to the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian homeland in and around 1948 through forced displacement and massacre in order to create the present-day state of Israel. Some 530 villages and neighborhoods were destroyed and depopulated. Dozens of those villages faced massacres in which approximately 13,000 Palestinians were killed. 750,000 Palestinians were displaced and barred from returning home, becoming refugees. Palestinian refugees make up the largest and longest standing refugee in camps. And these 5 million refugees are the registered descendants of those originally displacing during the Nakba. The Nakba isn't a past traumatic event. It is still being carried out slowly in what is left of Palestine. Decades late, the West Bank and Gaza remain under heavy Israeli military rule, which controls heavy aspect of Palestinian life. Palestinian homes continues to be demolished as an ongoing basis. Before we start with our first speaker, I would like to read the statement of principles. We are Canadians from all walks of life and religions. We are deeply concerned about human rights and justice for all. We support Palestinians in their peaceful quest for freedom, democracy, and an end to the decades-long illegal occupation and colonization of Palestine. We oppose all forms of bigotry and racism, including Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Palestinian hate speech. We oppose Zionism, but not Judaism. We reject the claim that Zionism and Judaism are one and the same. We believe that the goals of Zionism are discriminatory and are profoundly inconsistent with the values of Judaism. We condemn, in particular, all acts of violence against innocent civilians. As conscious Canadians, we demand that our government fulfill its international legal duty to ensure that Israel respects the Geneva Convention and other applicable international law concerning lands and people under occupation. We call on Canada's government to impose peaceful economic sanctions on Israel until Israel complies with its international legal obligation. Brothers and sisters, today's rally will be done in approximately 90 minutes. Please stay with us for the entire event. Now, without any further ado, I would like to invite our first speaker, Brother Ken Stone. Ken Stone is a long-time Palestinian solidarity, anti-war, anti-racist, and environmental activist. Raised in a Jewish home and now residing in Hamilton, Ontario, he is treasurer of the Hamilton Coalition to Stop the War and executive member of the Syria Solidarity Movement. Please welcome Brother Ken Stone.
Thank you, brother. Al-Quds Day 2020 is another win for us. Last year, Premier Ford and Mayor Tory tried unsuccessfully to ban the Toronto Al-Quds rally and rob us of our democratic right to express solidarity with the Palestinian people. This year, despite COVID-19, the Toronto virtual rally is still going ahead, and I'd like to congratulate the Al-Quds Committee for its determination in holding this important annual event that takes place in the context of worldwide demonstrations. 2 years ago, on Al-Quds Day, we were protesting Trump's moving of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, at which time a vote was held at the UN General Assembly in which 128 countries voted against the move and only 9 supported it. And how did Trudeau vote? The Trudeau government spinelessly and shamelessly abstained. 1 year ago, Trump declared U.S. support for Israel's illegal annexation of the Golan Heights. Once again, most countries of the world, even including Canada, expressed displeasure with this outrageous foreign seizure of the sovereign territory of Syria. But what did the Trudeau government do in this instance? It failed to remove the charitable status of the Jewish National Fund, which raises tax-free donations in Canada to build Jewish-only settlements in the Golan Heights. I say shame on the Trudeau government for pandering to Israel and its sponsors in Canada. This year, when Trump unveiled his deal of the century, Global Affairs Minister Champagne, to his credit, stuck to Canada's position that, quote, a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians could only be achieved through direct negotiations, end of quote. However, when Trump recently gave the green light to Israel to annex parts of the West Bank, Champagne was silent. A few days ago, the Green Party of Canada sent a letter to Trudeau, and I'll read a bit of it, and it says, Trudeau should bring this matter up with the utmost urgency to Canada's international partners and to apply pressure on Israel to back down from this dangerous plan. If strong words by international leaders prove insufficient to convince Israel to abide by international law, the Green Party letter goes on, then tougher measures such as sanctions might be called for, end of quote. The Green Party of Canada deserves high praise for this statement, which sets it apart from the other political parties in Canada. Presented with the deal of the century, for Palestinians, resistance can be the only way forward. Of course, the mere fact that the Palestinians continue to live on the land of historic Palestine, as it were, by hanging on their very fingertips, it's a form of resistance. But they do much more than that. They have the Great March of Return, the Palestinian prisoner struggle, opposition to home demolitions in East Jerusalem, unauthorized demonstrations almost every day in the West Bank against the proposed annexation. These are just some examples of the Palestinian resistance that goes on and has been going on for 72 long years since the establishment of the State of Israel. And this resistance by the Palestinians is part of the historic resistance of the whole Arab nation from Iraq to Morocco against European colonialism, first the British and French, then the Spanish and Italians, and now the USA. Israel itself has an intimate understanding of the dangers posed by long-term resistance to its expansionist plans. It was driven out of Lebanon after 18 long years of struggle by Hezbollah. In Syria, which Israel has bombed over 1,000 times in the last decade of regime change war, Israel is dismayed by the fact that the Syrian people and government are poised to win the war to reassert Syria's national sovereignty. Israel also knows that the majority of the countries of the world and the vast majority of the people on this planet support the Palestinian cause. And finally, Israel knows that its claim to the land is bogus and that its days of ruling over the indigenous inhabitants, just as the Crusaders knew 800 years ago, those days are numbered. So what can we do to support the Palestinian resistance? Like the Toronto Al-Quds Committee, we should never give up the struggle to support Palestine no matter what is thrown at us. We should insist that the Canadian government stand firmly against the deal of the century and the annexations in the West Bank. We should support the Green Party. We should demand the removal of the charitable status of the Jewish National Fund, endorse the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, and support BDS. In short, we should do everything we can in Canada to help the Palestinians resist Israeli occupation and realize their dream of a Palestinian state in all of historic Palestine. And I'd like to offer an action item, which I hope I can put onto the screen, or you can put onto the screen. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Brother Ken. Absolutely, the action item will be coming on the screen. It is one of the items on the agenda. And very well said, present day situation, resistance is the only way, and Israel claim to the land is bogus. And one thing is for sure, there is no two ways about it, that Gaza will be free. Now, Imam Ali alayhi salam said that justice is the base that supports the whole world. Now, I'd like to invite our first spoken words speaker, Sister Gule Zahra. Please join me to welcome Sister Gule Zahra.
Assalamu alaikum. This spoken word, this piece is called Can You Feel by Amna. Can you feel? The darkness of the night covered a Palestinian town. From the sky came a thundering sound. Yellow and red streaks colored the sky, frightening sounds heard from up high. Mothers console as their young ones cry, the older children whimper as their fathers sigh. No one speaks, but their minds all ask, is it today we'll breathe our last? The sun peeks in and all rise to check. Opening the front door, they sight the wreck. Destroyed buildings and glass-cut skin, causing blood to gush from within. Several other areas and homes are destroyed. The refugee camps have more people joined. Now, across the globe spreads a disease, taking away lives with a cough and a sneeze. Washing hands, sanitize, and staying clean is the new motto as the world quarantines. It was in China where the virus was initiated. Within days, the disease escalated, spreading from one country to the next. China, Russia, and Spain all felt its effects. The disease has disrupted people's being, restricting freedom of movement and the right to meeting. Going out unnecessarily is a crime. Children stay indoors to kill the time. People everywhere live in fear of their lives and the lives of those dear. Many are suffering while still alive, while others wonder if they'll even survive. They say you never know what you bear until it is no longer there. They say you will never truly understand hardship until you have felt your heart sink. Can the COVID-19 pandemic finally make us feel the pain and the suffering of the Palestinians all that much more real? Many households eat less with the closing down of business. Can we empathize with those Palestinians that are homeless? We live in fear of the virus entering our homes. Remember the times the military broke down Palestinian roof with their drones. We are living under uncertain times. Can this remind us of the heartbreaking Israeli war crimes? Coronavirus can take mere hours to spread from the East Coast to the West. So don't undermine the power of helping a country from afar. People can take effective measures to help the oppressed from wherever they are. Research, data, experimentation, and all the world can do, they do it to find a vaccine. Economic sanctions, boycott, and raising our voices, we too can put an end to the Israeli regime. They say you never really know what you bear until it is no longer there, and that you haven't understood hardship until you felt your heart sink. And it's when we feel pain, our hearts begin to change. And so just as we are so thankful to those on the front line during this distress, we should be the front line for the Palestinians and stand for everyone who is oppressed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahsant, Sister Gule Zahra. And I'm just repeating one of her lines, that is it today we will breathe our last. It's really unfortunate that young children and kids have to think that way. have to wake up in the morning thinking that is it going to be their last day. I'm just, it reminded me of a small quote that I was reading yesterday from Meher Zan. He says that no mother, no father to wipe away my tears. That's why I won't cry. I feel scared, but won't show my fear. I keep my head high. Deep in my heart, never have any doubt that Palestine tomorrow will be free. So Netanyahu, you will absolutely see Palestine will be free. You are killing the children and kids, but you can never kill their determination and their devotion. With that being said, I would like to request our next speaker, Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson is an Australian academic and an activist. Tim Anderson is an Australian activist. He was a senior lecturer at the University of Sydney until early 2019 and the author of several books on independent development and anti-imperialism. Please join me to welcome Brother Tim Anderson from Australia.
Greetings, friends. Al-Quds Day was set up for us to remember the cause of Palestine and for us to remember to support the resistance in Palestine, the root of a solution to all of the problems, not only in Palestine, but in the region. Let's briefly have a look at all the factors for and against the future of a liberated and democratic Palestine. In the first instance, the Zionist occupation, which has been extending itself in recent decades, appears to be a formidable obstacle. Then there's the strong Western allies that finance, arm, and also give propaganda support to the Zionist regime. Then there is this fanatical Zionist colonial ideology, which keeps a coherence amongst the colonists in Palestine. And finally, importantly, the disunity amongst Palestinian groups is a great weakness, a great obstacle. But let's look at the other side. The factors for a liberated and democratic Palestine are rooted in the resistance, the steadfast resistance that doesn't go away, that keeps occupying the land, remaining on the land in face of all of the pressures, and the active resistance, which is a daily fact of life. The regional allies are also important, that is to say the frontline states, Lebanon, Syria, Iran. All of the potential regional allies are extremely important because Palestine by itself cannot liberate itself from these forces. There is the vulnerability of the colony and of its supporters to international illegitimacy arguments. That's extremely important. The more that Palestine is exposed as an apartheid state, the more difficult it is for its allies to hang on to it. And in the end, that's going to be the factor that we can contribute most to outside Palestine, is the delegitimizing of this apartheid colony. But at the root is the resistance, and we have to find different ways to keep supporting the resistance, the root of a successful, liberated and democratic Palestine. So thank you for listening, and let's continue to support the resistance.
Thank you so much, Brother Tim Anderson. Freedom for Palestine, justice for Palestine. Brothers and sisters, past years, thousands of peace-loving Canadians from different religions joined us in this rally to show solidarity with oppressed people of the world, specifically Palestine. Let's take a quick look at our past Quds rallies. Our solidarity and our united voices for Palestine is a strong message to Zionist regime that humanity still exists and we will stand against oppression and injustice. I would like to request the moderator to please show us the video about our past year's Quds rallies.
No justice. No justice. No justice. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. From Ferguson to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. From Ferguson to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. From Ferguson to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Gaza. Free, free Gaza. Free, free Gaza. Palestine. Free Gaza. Free, 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 free Palestine. 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 Judaism, yes. Zionism, no. Judaism, yes. Zionism, no. Judaism, yes. Zionism, no. Judaism, yes. Zionism, no. Palestine. Justice for Palestine. Freedom for Palestine. Freedom for Palestine. Justice for Palestine. Justice for Palestine. Freedom for Palestine. Freedom for Palestine. Justice for Palestine. Justice for Palestine. Let that country know that if they decide to fund and support racism, terrorism, and injustice, we will oppose them till our last breath.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Memories from the past. Thousands of us were on the road chanting for the freedom of Palestine, and the whole GTA downtown could hear free, free Palestine. Zionism is racism. Zionism is terrorism. Yes to Judaism and no to Zionism. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, there are three things that you can never get back. Time that was wasted, words that were spoken, and the opportunities that were not taken. So it's time for the first action of the day, which is let justice be done. You will see a slide on the screen for the first action of the day. This is about Trudeau, and Brother Ken spoke about this as well, that how our governments are doing hypocrisy in making rules, following it in different ways for someone and different for other people. So if I can ask the moderator to please put a slide of the action number 1, let justice be done, where we want to tell Trudeau government to support the International Court, which is ICC, to investigate crimes in Palestine. The Trudeau government has written to ICC saying that it does not have jurisdiction to investigate Israel's war crimes against Palestinians because Palestine is not a state. So this is what Trudeau government is saying, that Palestine is not a state. Joined 42 Canadian civil society groups among 183 Palestinian regional and international human rights groups calling on ICC to pursue justice for Palestine. Take 2 to 3 minutes to send a letter to Trudeau government to tell them you want Israel held accountable under international law. Follow the link to send them form or personal letter, which is tinyurl.com/Al-Quds-letter ICC. Brothers and sisters, this will not take a long time. Please do your part and send these letters as soon as possible. This is the least that we can do for our for the oppressed people of Palestine, for the oppressed people of wherever they are, in Yemen, in Kashmir, in everywhere. This is the least that we can do, and try our best to hold our governments accountable and responsible for the actions that they are doing and for the words that they are saying. And Again, Judaism rejects Zionism. I would like to invite our next speaker, Rabbi David Fieldman. Rabbi Fieldman is an active rabbi of Neturei Karta International, an organization founded in the 1930s in Jerusalem to protect the Jewish community from the new Zionist movement. Over the past few decades, NKI has been active in giving publicity to the voice of opposition of many Jewish communities around the world to the Zionist ideology, the Zionist state, and its crimes committed to the Palestinian people. They explain to the world the distinction between Judaism and Zionism, that the relatively new Zionist movement is a rebellion against GD, and it does not represent the Holy Torah, nor the entire Jewish people. Rabbi Fieldman and his colleagues appear frequently at public demonstrations, university lectures, radio and television interviews, and pro-Palestinian conference. Please join me to welcome Brother Rabbi David Fieldman.
Thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum. First, I would like to thank the Al-Quds Day Committee in Toronto, Brother Siraj, and the rest of the staff for inviting me, and especially for arranging this important virtual rally. Today's virtual rally is very important since the occupation of Palestine is not just continuing, but expanding and worsening. While we are limited due to the COVID-19 pandemic and no public gathering are held, constantly more Palestinian homes are being demolished and more land is being annexed. It's already 72 years since the Palestinian Nakba, the catastrophe that has befallen the Palestinian people in 1948. So many people have been killed and tortured. So many properties have been confiscated, and so many indigenous citizens have been misplaced from their homes and towns. Those who remained are badly oppressed and considered second-class citizens in their own land. It's our obligation, the people of the free world, to stand up in face of this brutal occupation, raise awareness, teach the masses, and do all in our ability to stop this. We, as Jewish people worldwide, find even more important to show our solidarity with Palestine and our opposition to the state of Israel in all its criminal actions, since all of these atrocities are unfortunately being done supposedly in our name, in the name of the Jewish people, in the name of the Holy Torah, the Jewish religion. Unfortunately, the Zionist movement is misusing the Jewish religion, misquoting verses of the Torah to justify the occupation and its atrocities. But we need to understand that we are dealing with a state, a movement which is secular, its founders were outspoken heretics, and its present leaders don't keep any of the Jewish laws. They are misusing the Jewish religion to support an anti-Jewish religious movement. Therefore, they cannot represent world Jewry and certainly not speak in the name of the Jewish religion. The whole philosophy of Zionism, the concept of Jewish sovereignty, is contrary to basics of Jewish belief, which teaches that Jews are presently in a divinely decreed exile and are forbidden to end it by any physical means. Massively immigrating to the Holy Land is forbidden, or to rebel against any nation is totally forbidden according to Judaism. This would be forbidden for Jews even if it doesn't harm anyone, or if it will be in total peace with all peoples. But when this state was created in Palestine by oppressing its entire indigenous population and occupying their land, this is a violation of many additional Jewish laws, not to kill, not to steal, and so on. This brutal occupation of Palestine, this oppression of its people is cruel, it's wrong, it's a crime against humanity, and is a cardinal sin towards the Almighty. We all are presently experiencing the difficulties and limitations, the sadness due to the present coronavirus. Many people have died, families have lost their loved ones, people are ill in critical condition, masses of people are isolated and life is limited to a large extent. We should learn from this. We should wake up to start to understand what life being limited feels like. Maybe to a certain extent, we can relate now more than before to the limitations and suffering that the Palestinian people go through for the past over 70 years. My entire family and communities I grew up in are descendants of Jewish people that were murdered in the Holocaust or survived the indescribable brutality during World War II. It is because we know how suffering feels. We are pained when we see other people suffering. It's because our religion teaches mercy and compassion. It troubles us when this religion is misused to support oppression. It's because we know the old history of Palestine, when Muslims and Jews lived in peaceful harmony. It is painful for us to see the current tragic conflict. Authentic Jewish people since the inception of Zionism to the present day, from Jerusalem to Canada and throughout the world, totally oppose the existence of the State of Israel, its occupation of Palestine, and all its crimes committed towards the Palestinian people. I appreciate the statement of principles that was read before by the chair at the beginning of this rally. I remember those chants at those rallies taking place on the streets, clarifying the difference between Judaism and Zionism. If crimes are committed by people from Jewish descent, it doesn't make those actions Jewish. If the Zionist movement is using religious concepts to make this occupation look holy, it still doesn't make it right, godly, or religious. We encourage everyone to pray to the Almighty for the speedy dismantlement of the entire state of Israel. May God's mercy be upon us all, that this occupation should stop, should end peaceful, without any more suffering of anyone. And may we ultimately merit to see the day when the glory of the Almighty will be revealed throughout the universe, and all mankind will serve Him in peace and harmony. Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, brother. And absolutely well said that it is not only, oppression is not only continuing, but is expanding. Homes are still being demolished in Palestine as we speak right now. Zionism is misusing Judaism and is misquoting Holy Torah. So we absolutely believe, and we want to give this message to the entire world, that Zionism is racism, and down with Zionism. Judaism, yes. Zionism, no. Imam Hussein alayhi salam said, "Those who are silent when others are oppressed are guilty of oppression themselves." I would like to invite our next speaker, Devanshu Narang. Devanshu Narang is an Indian-born Canadian truth activist, believes in fighting discrimination of all kinds everywhere in the world. He is a writer, author, performer in the creative world, and an engineering consultant, entrepreneur, realtor in business. He is a columnist for Times of India and also writes regularly for Canadian media. In a world where the right wing grows and spews hatred, Devanshu considers it his call. Please join me to welcome Devanshu Narang.
So if you could not hear a single word what I said up until now, it was because my voice was muted. Like the voice of thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of second-class citizens all over the world, including Palestine, including Kashmir, including Tibet, including the Rohingyas, including anywhere in the world where the majority feels it is easy and right and justified to torment the minorities, to torment the people whose rights have been seized. I'm not going to talk about the politics because that is left to the distinguished speakers and learned people to talk about. I only focus on the common man. In 2020, the Pulitzer Prize went to Chani Anand, Mukhtar Khan, and Dar Yassin of the Associated Press in Kashmir. And their photojournalism focused on the happenings in Kashmir, where the Indian forces had occupied and put a total ban on the movement of people, and also removed Article 370 and Article 35 and taken over the land. They converted the state of Kashmir, which had become a part of India, into a proper illegally occupied territory. Some of these photographs you must see for yourself. I don't know whether you could see this, but this is one of the photographs I would like to show to you. Here is a man with a simple stone in his hand. He's standing, he's jumping, he's shouting, he's showing his angst against an armored vehicle full of people, with tens of people with maybe automatic weapons, followed by 100, maybe tens of other armored vehicles behind it. This man knows that even a single person who pulls the trigger can end his life, and yet he fights just with a small stone. Sometimes I think, what drives people when they do this action? How do they get that strength to fight oppression? How do they get the courage to stand in front of death and still say, we are alive, we will fight? And then I talk to my friends back home in India. I talk to my friends in Kashmir. I speak to my friends in Palestine. I remember when I was in college, I used to speak to my friends from Palestine who had come to do engineering in IIT in India from Palestine. And I used to ask them, you face problems of language, you face problems of culture, you face problems of understanding, and yet you are here thousands of miles away from Palestine. And why would you do that? And I'm talking about the years of 1985 to 1989. And they said they are doing this because there are lesser opportunities in their land of higher learning, and they want to go back to that land and create opportunities for people, because they don't want to continue to live lives of second-class citizens. I went to Kashmir 2 years back, and I saw that how for 8 million people living in Kashmir, there were 1 million soldiers plus. How every kilometer I walked or I went, there were soldiers everywhere. How people are being checked in Palestine. If you go to Palestine, I hear from my friends in Palestine that people are checked and herded, and as herds they are checked by Israeli soldiers. They're afraid. There's a climate of fear, like there's a climate of fear in Kashmir, and not just in Kashmir, in various other parts of India, where the right-wing Indian government is using laws like CAA and NPR to create oppression, to torment its own people, and to make them second-class citizens. I know how it feels for a person to be treated as one. What do? You keep quiet? You stay silent? You see your daughters, your sisters, your mothers being harassed because of the kind of clothes they wear? You yourself feel hate. You can see the hatred in the eyes of people, and yet you have to still go on. You have to still continue to be positive about life. You have to do that because you cannot be defeated. Your spirit cannot be defeated. Kashmir cannot be defeated. Palestine cannot be defeated. Tibet cannot be defeated. Its people cannot be defeated, because the human spirit inside wants to be free, wants to be treated as equal, as one. So my friends who are silent as of now, who feel that it is the struggle of somebody else, I am not a Palestinian, it is not my struggle. I am not a Kashmiri, it is not my struggle. Let me tell you, tomorrow the same right wing can come to you. People like Netanyahu, people like Modi do not believe in anything but having total power over people. And when they will have no further enemies left, they will come after you. So stand right now, fight these people, stand for the spirit. Let the Palestinians, let the Kashmiris, let anybody who's living anywhere in the world, let the rational people in the world take the cause of the oppressed people and stand for them and speak out for them. Palestine is indivisible. Palestine cannot be defeated because its people cannot be defeated, and Palestine and Kashmir and Tibet live in the minds of the people. And we support them. And we secular people will continue to support them for this lifetime and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, brother. Very well said and very well done. If the voices are muted, operation will continue. For 8 million people, 1 million soldiers in Kashmir, that's a shame. And that tells you that 1 million soldiers could not stop those people from speaking up. And no matter how many soldiers you put in these kind of lands, whether Palestine or Kashmir, you cannot stop them. It's their homeland, it's their freedom, it's their family, it's their security. Now it's time for our second action of the day, which is end the lockdown in Kashmir. Brothers and sisters, I cannot stress more on this. It will take only a couple of minutes, maximum 2 to 3 minutes, for us to do our part and raise our concern to our governments and help those oppressed people in the minimum way that we can do while sitting in our cozy homes. Despite the COVID-19, we did not see the problems and the issues and the concerns, the hunger and the thirst that our Kashmiri brothers and sisters or Palestinian brothers and sisters or Yemen or Bahrain or all over the world, what they are seeing. We do not see even 1% of that. This is the least that we can do. Sign a formal petition E2607 to be read in the House of Commons and to attention of government. Petition E2607 calls on Government of Canada to condemn India's domicile law and settler colonization underway in Jammu and Kashmir. Requests that India restore internet access and end preemptive imprisonment and free all political prisoners, among other requests. All residents and citizens of Canada are invited to sign petition. Thank you to Scott Jewell, MP, NDP Hamilton Mountain, for being the sponsor of this petition in House of Commons. Brothers and sisters, it will take 1 minute to sign the e-petition. With enough signatures, it will be formally read inside the House of Commons and entered into the official proceedings. Follow the link, tiny URL, Al-Quds e-petition Kashmir. To learn more about Canadians for Justice and Peace in Kashmir, please visit www.cpjk.org. Please, brothers and sisters, do your part. It will take only 2 to 3 minutes, and maybe with your voice, somebody will get justice. Now, Martin Luther once said, "You are not only responsible for what you say, but also for what you do not say." I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Dimitri Lascaris. Dimitri is a lawyer, journalist, and activist. After graduating from the University of Toronto, Faculty of Law in 1991, he began his law career, eventually specializing in class action suits against corporations, recovering more than $450 million for aggrieved parties. A few years ago, Dimitri retired from law in order to devote himself to journalism, activism, and pro bono legal work. He has been a correspondent of the Real News Network and has served on the boards of numerous public interest organizations, including social and housing issues, climate change, and legal advocacy. After running for the Green Party of Canada in 2015 federal election, he served as Justice Critique in the shadow cabinet of the party. Dimitri is now running for the leadership of the federal Green Party of Canada. We wish Dimitri success in his bid and hope to support him when the time comes. Please join me. Welcome, Dimitri Lascaris.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Today, in 2020, after more than half a century of occupation of the Palestinian people, it sometimes seems harder than ever to advocate on their behalf for their human rights. And those who devote their time and passion to the defense of oppressed Palestinians constantly search for signs that their efforts are bearing fruit. But on the surface, sometimes it seems there's little cause for optimism. Israel's illegal West Bank settlements are now more extensive than ever, despite countless condemnations of those settlements by international institutions, human rights groups, and governments around the world, including our own government here in Canada. So emboldened has the Israeli government become that it now talks openly of annexing large swaths of the West Bank, and it no longer makes even the pretense of being engaged in good faith negotiations toward the creation of a truly sovereign Palestinian state. Following the Trump administration's decision to move the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, a decision which a few other states have since cowardly followed, Israel's illegal annexation of East Jerusalem seems to have become more entrenched than ever. And then, of course, there is Gaza. The conditions within Gaza are as difficult as they have ever been. As we all know, years ago, the United Nations predicted that Gaza would be unlivable in 2020, and that is precisely what Gaza has become, even before the date predicted by the United Nations. Its health system barely functions. The vast majority of Gaza's water is contaminated and unfit for human consumption. The sea off of Gaza's coast is poisoned by sewage because there's not enough electricity and infrastructure to run Gaza's war-ravaged sewage system. Before the pandemic, Gaza had the highest unemployment rate in the world, in excess of over 40%. Without a doubt, the pandemic has deepened Gaza's economic devastation and has exposed its deeply vulnerable population to the risk of a mass outbreak of a potentially deadly virus. Despite all of this, Israel seems to have become ever more integrated into the global economy. For example, in 2018, only days after Israeli snipers gunned down dozens of Palestinian civilians in Gaza's Great March of Return, including children, medics, and journalists, the Trudeau government entered into an even deeper trade agreement with Israel. That agreement conferred preferential tariff treatment on products made in Israel's settlements, which the Trudeau government itself admits are a grave violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. Canada's government conferred these trade benefits on Israel, despite the fact that one of the civilians whom Israeli snipers had shot only days earlier was a Canadian Palestinian, Dr. Tarek Loubani. Quite apart from these grim facts, advocating for Palestinians has become ever more hazardous. It is now virtually impossible to advocate effectively and vigorously for Palestinian rights without being smeared as an anti-Semite or a supporter of terrorism. We have all seen that these terrible accusations have been hurled even against our brothers and sisters in the Jewish community who have courageously spoken in defense of the Palestinian cause. In some jurisdictions, advocacy for Palestinians has almost been criminalized. In the United States, advocates of Israel came close to passing the Israel Anti-Boycott Act, a bill which sought to impose civil and even criminal penalties on institutions supporting boycott, divestment, and sanctions. In Canada, our supposedly progressive Prime Minister has repeatedly smeared supporters of BDS, who include our brothers and sisters in the Jewish community, as anti-Semitic. And yet, at the end of the day, what is BDS? It is simply a call for Israel to be subjected to economic penalties until it respects the human rights of Palestinians. Mr. Trudeau's government currently imposes sanctions on approximately 20 state and state actors for their violations of human rights. Those of us who support BDS, as I do, are simply demanding that Israel be treated the same as any other human rights violator, and that our government end the double standard it has employed to shield Israel from accountability. But yes, my friends, the situation for our Palestinian brothers and sisters seems grim, but I'm here to tell you today that despite these appearances, we have made immense progress and the Palestinian people are winning. In early 2017, the Green Party of Canada overwhelmingly approved a resolution calling for the use of sanctions, including an arms embargo, to ensure Israel's respect for international law. This marked the first time in Canadian political history that a party having representation in Parliament formally adopted a policy calling for sanctions on Israel. Just days ago, and as Brother Ken Stone mentioned, our three Green MPs, Paul Manley, Elizabeth May, and Jenica Atwin, sent a letter to the Canadian government demanding that it oppose Israel's pending annexation of the West Bank and that the government employ sanctions if necessary to deter that annexation. And earlier this month, nearly 130 current and former British lawmakers wrote to the United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson and urged him to impose economic sanctions if Israel moves ahead with plans to annex sections of the West Bank. The signatories reportedly included Conservative Party Chairman Chris Patten. In 2017, along with Independent Jewish Voices Canada, Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East, and journalist Murray Dobbin, I sponsored a poll by a leading Canadian polling firm, Ecos Research, which revealed that approximately 80% of Canadians expressing an opinion believe that the Palestinian call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions on Israel is reasonable. That same poll showed that more than half of Canadians who expressed an opinion opposed Parliament's condemnation of the BDS campaign, and that 2/3 say government sanctions on Israel would also be reasonable. Polls in other jurisdictions have also revealed major shifts in public opinion, and that sympathy for the Palestinian cause is rising dramatically across the Western world. Statements of leading politicians also reveal a dramatic shift. Last year, Bernie Sanders, who twice came close to securing the Democratic nomination for the President of the United States, and who frequently refers to Israel as an occupying power, made clear that he would be prepared to condition the annual $3.8 billion in US military aid to Israel on its treatment of Palestinians. And in 2018, US Congresswoman Betty McCollum openly declared that Israel is an apartheid state. In that same year, former Green Party leader Elizabeth May visited the West Bank with other Canadian MPs, and upon her return to Canada, Ms. May held a press conference with two other MPs from the NDP and the Bloc Québécois, in which she stated that what Israel is doing to occupied Palestinians is, quote, much worse than apartheid was for Blacks in South Africa. Not only are Palestinian solidarity activists winning in the court of public opinion, they are winning also in the courts of law. Last year, in a judicial review application, which I had the pleasure to prosecute on behalf of Dr. David Kattenberg, a member of Winnipeg's Jewish community, the Federal Court of Canada ruled that product of Israel labels on wines made in Israel's illegal settlements are false, misleading, and deceptive. In 2017, in another case in which I acted as counsel, the British Columbia Supreme Court rejected a petition asking the court to stop a BDS referendum at the University of British Columbia. A year ago, for the third time, a United States federal district court ruled that a state anti-BDS law violated the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, which protects freedom of expression. Just 3 weeks ago, the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom ruled that the British government's ban on ethical pensions divestment is unlawful. This meant that local governments in the United Kingdom were free, contrary to the wishes of Boris Johnson's government, to divest from companies that violated Palestinian human rights. This was, by any measure, a major victory for the BDS movement and for Britain's Palestinian solidarity campaign. Why? Why is all of this happening, my friends? I believe that there are two major reasons that the tide is turning in favor of Palestinian human rights. First, the Netanyahu government has shattered the illusion that Israel's government genuinely desires a just peace. Its refusal to engage in meaningful peace talks and its declared intention to annex large swaths of the West Bank have exploded the Zionist mythology. Israel's promoters can no longer deny with a straight face that Israel's true objective is and always has been to secure permanent control over all of historic Palestine and to subject the Palestinians who remain under occupation to a system of oppression which, as Elizabeth May said so eloquently, is far worse than apartheid in South Africa. I have often said that impunity makes people stupid. What I mean by that is when a criminal gets away with breaking the law repeatedly, that criminal becomes complacent. He makes mistakes, and that is precisely what has happened to Israel's government. It has gotten away with violating international law for so long that it has recklessly abandoned even the pretense that it is willing to tolerate a Palestinian state. Ultimately, this arrogance will ensure and hasten the demise of Israel's brutal system of apartheid. But there is an even more important reason for the turning of the tide, and that reason is the sheer force of will, the amazing dignity, and the enduring courage of the Palestinian people themselves. One day soon, Palestinians will have self-determination, and they will achieve it by peaceful means. Indeed, I'm convinced that this will happen in my own lifetime. And when it does happen, historians will look back on these decades of struggle by the indomitable Palestinian people as one of the greatest achievements in the history of human emancipation. Thank you.
There's no doubt about it that Zionism is terrorism. Israel is a terrorist state, and the criminal is making mistakes. Now it calls for a third action of the day, and I would request Brother Dimitri Laskaris again. This action is about running for a leadership of Green Party of Canada. If I can have Brother Dimitri Laskaris to speak on his agenda. And first of all, on behalf of everyone, brother, we wish you luck, and we want to see leaders like you to represent Canada. It's for us, for the Canadians, and for the oppressed people of the world. I'll hand the mic over to Brother Dimitri Laskaris.
Thank you, brother. It's not known that the Green Party of Canada doesn't only stand for ecological wisdom and for sustainability. It certainly demands that we have an ecologically sustainable and an ecologically wise society, but we stand for more than that. And all of these core values that I'm going to talk about are intertwined. We also stand for respect for diversity, which means we are at heart an anti-racist party. We also stand for non-violence. That is one of our 6 core values, which means that we oppose war and militarism. We stand for social justice, and we stand for participatory democracy. And when you put all of those values together, which, as I say, are intimately intertwined, what it means is that we must, as a party, it's at the core of who we are, stand with all oppressed peoples, the oppressed peoples of Palestine, the oppressed peoples of Kashmir, the oppressed indigenous peoples here in our own country, Black Canadians, Blacks in the United States, wherever oppressed peoples may be found. It is our duty to stand with them, and that is the essence of who we are as a party. And that is a message that I'm going to carry with me throughout this campaign, and I hope you'll give a look at my leadership bid and think about supporting not just me, but the Green Party of Canada. If you understand what our 6 core values are, I think you'll understand that these are values that are eminently worth supporting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Dimitri. And Green Party, standing for diversity, social justice, standing for oppressed people, not only in Canada, in the entire world. We absolutely wish you luck, and we hope and pray when the time comes, you can absolutely count on us. You can give us a call. We'll be there to support and to do whatever we can. In the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe, stand out firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even if it be against yourself, your parents, and your relatives, or whether it is against the rich or the poor." So brother and sister, today what we are doing in this small little teeny tiny bit effort to raise our concerns and voices to support our oppressed people, brothers and sisters from Palestine, don't consider it as a very little. This is a lot. Absolutely, it will make a difference. As Brother Dimitri said, that there are a lot of successes which is happening, which most of us might not even know. But slowly and surely, we are getting there. Palestine will be free, and I'm hoping and praying that we all will see that free Palestine. I'm pleased to invite our next speaker, Susan Wise. Susan Wise was inspired to become a lifelong activist for justice by survivor of the anti-Nazi resistance in France. She continues to be inspired to attain justice by the Palestinian resistance, which does not give up in spite of monstrous odds. Susan is the author of a book, Holocaust to Resistance: My Journey, available from Fernwood Publishers. Please join me to welcome Susan Wise.
The world's peoples are at war with the virus COVID-19. The virus has allies. the U.S. government of Donald Trump and his imitators, including apartheid Israel. We need solidarity. We are all in this together. But Trump falsely blames the Chinese immigrants for the coronavirus. Trump has not yet blamed the Muslims. But let's be on guard. Israel, as an occupying power, rejects the duty their duty under international law to treat the Palestinians humanely. Gaza residents continue to suffer oppression, blockade, and bombardment. The virus hits frontline workers, people of color, and immigrants. Globally, those most at risk are the poor, oppressed peoples, and among them the Palestinians. Yet, after 72 years of brutal ethnic cleansing, Palestinians still refuse subjugation and heroically resist. They're an inspiration to all who love social justice. Ambulances are blocked and access to hospitals, imports of protective and test equipment are obstructed. Clean water and electricity are lacking. Housing is inadequate for distancing. There's a great danger of a disastrous virus outbreak, yet we have seen no significant response from any of the rich countries of the West concerning Gaza. Sadly, the Parliament of Ontario is preparing to condemn criticism of Israel. Some want to make it a crime to say the words Israeli apartheid. They claim it expresses hatred of Jews. No, it expresses hatred of apartheid. Let Ontario affirm freedom of discussion. The best antidote to anti-Semitism and other forms of racism is open discussion. In this context, I welcome the efforts of the Al-Quds organizers, our Muslim and Palestinian friends of Al-Quds to seek to overcome any Jewish and anti-Palestinian prejudice. They say, Judaism, yes. Zionism, no. These efforts, but Al-Quds deserves constructive engagement and respect for free speech. Support of open discussion was confirmed on my recent book tour. I spoke at 20 events on my memoir, Holocaust to Resistance, My Journey, published by Fernwood. I dealt with controversial issues related to Israel-Palestine. The meetings had respectful exchanges of views. There was no Zionist disruption. Disruptors, like roaches, flee the light of reason. Palestinians must be free to pursue their dreams in their homeland, in equality with their Jewish sisters and brothers. Trudeau, demand an end to the Israeli siege of Gaza. Trudeau, defend the freedom to discuss on Israel-Palestine. As for us, let us pursue our global boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israeli apartheid. Free Palestine! Thank you very much for the honor of speaking to your audience.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, and well said. It's a good reminder for the international community that no clean water, no adequate housing, no test kits, but yet international community is quiet, not saying a single word in the favor of oppressed Palestinians. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, "The most unjust of men is one who establishes the practice of oppression and abolishes the practice of justice." With that said, I would like to invite Brother Zainul Abidin for the spoken words. Please welcome Brother Zainul Abidin.
Jazakallah, Brother Farman. I'm going to be reciting a parody of an original song called I Am Not Afraid to Stand Alone by Native Deans, and inshallah I'll make it into a spoken word. We aren't afraid to stand alone because Allah is by our side. Palestine will continue to fight. No parents to wipe away the tears, and that's why the kids can't cry. They feel scared, but they won't show their fears. Hope in Allah keeps their heads up high. Struggling with no one to lean on, but with prayer. Palestinians are the strong ones who had family, but then they were killed off, who have to fight and become the standoff. Children killed, many bombs in the sky, but we know that God is on the right side. Don't worry when they threaten at night. They'll be sorry when God puts them right. It's a tough position Israel puts them in because they've been struggling with desperation. But for the land of Palestine, we will defend. Our faith and religion now will never bend. That is why we are not afraid to stand by Palestine. Palestine is what Israel was annihilating, and the Palestinians were resisting. Some days they felt they would give in, just wanted to quit living. How many people are being silenced? How many mothers left devastated? What happened in Afghanistan, witnessed a few days ago, Palestine witnesses as a daily blow. So we call our Lord for the power, for the strength every day, every hour. Free Palestine and stop the onslaught with the weapons. Those innocent souls went to heaven where it is pleasant. What happened in the US on 9/11 happens in Palestine 24/7. That is why we are not afraid to stand by Palestine. Palestinians are tough ones who can bear Israel's blows. And it is like this that will turn Palestine like it was before. Those puppets are scared of being shunned, but it's clear they know. But the Palestinians are going nowhere. They aren't scared anymore. The Palestinians with us must resolute. Never stress when the rest they execute. Freedom won't be achieved till they feel the pain. Palestinians shout, tears pouring like rain. Palestinians have been made into Palestine has been made into a battleground. So we must defend along Palestine and stand our ground. And don't shudder when the enemy's around. Others may fall, but we'll hold our own. With the help of Allah, we'll be as strong as stone. And we'll be brave. Let Islam be shown, because we are not afraid to stand by Palestine. Jazakallah.
Thank you so much, Brother Zainul Abidin, for beautiful words. We aren't afraid to stand alone. And what happened on 9/11 happens in Palestine 24/7. Very, very well said, Brother Zainul Abidin. Now it's time for our next speaker, respected Sheikh Shafiq Huda. Sheikh Shafiq Huda was born in Uganda. Along all Asians, his family was exiled and came to Canada in 1973 and grew up in Kitchener. Following post-secondary, Sheikh Shafiq Huda went to Qom for further religious studies in the late 1980s, and prior to that, He founded a non-profit organization, Islamic Humanitarian Services. He has been a human rights activist, standing for the rights of Palestinians, Kashmiris, Cubans, Venezuelans, indigenous Canadians, and other displaced people around the world. Sheikh Shafiq Huda was a founding member of Interfaith Grand River, an umbrella organization of faith leaders throughout southwestern Ontario. He has been a regular participant at the annual Quds Day and Yemen Remembrance Day rallies. Please join me to welcome Sheikh Shafiq Huda.
Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon all of you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen. Wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin amma ba'd. I want to sincerely appreciate the Al-Quds Day Committee in Toronto for all your hard efforts. It's interesting when I hear people complain that we have to be under lockdown, or we are in self-isolation, or we have to stay home, or we cannot go outside for other than essential responsibilities and duties. When I hear this kind of complaining, I get startled, I get amazed, I get baffled as well, that what we are encountering just for a few weeks, people in Palestine have been going through for almost 72 years. People in Kashmir, this is a part of their life. This interesting thing is that we will come back to our home. We will come back to our families after we have bought the groceries, we have bought the milk. We complain about lineups, we complain about milk shortages and egg shortages and toilet paper shortages. And yet, do we think about those who may not get eggs or milk, not for a few hours or a few days, but they don't know when and if they will have milk or eggs? This is something that is a reality for the Palestinians, for the Kashmiris, for some people in Venezuela, for Cubans who are under American sanctions and embargoes. We see so many people around the world suffering, the Rohingyas, the Tibetans, as has been mentioned so eloquently and beautifully by the speakers before me. May God bless them all, may God reward them all. And to the organizers who have created this ability for us to appreciate and understand those who are less fortunate than ourselves. We see that the Zionist state, as has been mentioned by Mr. Dimitri, my dear brother, that things are changing, and the world opinion and the popular opinion is starting to get awakened by what has been happening and what has been transpiring in the Palestinian lands. And one of the things that has been interesting when I've been reading the news and I've been following up is that the Zionists, the occupying force of Palestine, the Zionist regime, the Zionist entity, the illegitimate usurpers of the Palestinian land, has been going on a PR campaign, public relations campaign, to encourage other world leaders like the Australians, like the Canadians. They don't need to do anything with the Americans. The Americans are already in their pockets anyways, to try and say that prevent them from going to the ICC, the International Criminal Court. My question to the Zionists is, if you've not done something wrong, why are you afraid to go before the judges? Why are you afraid to go before the International Criminal Court if you're not a criminal? The fact that you're sending out delegations and public relations people is that you realize inside your hearts and inside your minds that you are doing something wrong. You are violating rights. You are committing crimes that you do not want the International Criminal Court to investigate. That's why you're afraid. Those who are not afraid don't need to worry. And interestingly enough, also, those who are the supporters of the Zionist regime, those who are the die-hard backers of Netanyahu and his racist criminals, his prejudicial criminals, they were the same ones who had supported white supremacists in South Africa during the time of apartheid. These are the same elements, these are the same racists who support South Africa at the time of apartheid, who are supporting the Zionists and the Israelis and the Netanyahus and those before him and those who will come after him. They're the same supporters. And incidentally, it is also the same ideology, this racist criminal ideology, that is running the state of India currently. And the same racist policies that they're implementing, the Israelis, the Zionists have been implementing, the South Africans had. But what changed the whole scenario? What changed the whole game strategy? Boycotts, divestments, and sanctions. BDS is the most feared movement right now in the contemporary world by the Zionists, and that's why they're making this anti-democratic stand. States across the US are starting to ban this. Ontario wanted to discuss this and bring it into law. Canada has been discussing this as well. Should we equate BDS, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, with anti-Semitism? Please remember, my sisters and my brothers, those who are participating in the rally, our virtual rally, at least we didn't shut the doors. We made sure that our voices are heard loud and clear. We are being recorded. We are being noted. We know that. And yet we find that this democratic right that we have is being violated on us now. Anybody who speaks out is called an anti-Semite. Don't forget one thing. We love our Jewish brothers and sisters who are with us today and who are with us when we were able to go and walk in downtown Toronto, and we were able to walk in downtown Vancouver and in other places across Canada, whether it's in Ottawa and Montreal. Remember, our Jewish brothers and sisters are there. Our Hindu brothers and sisters are there. Our Sikh brothers and sisters are there. Our Christian brothers and sisters are there. Even our atheist brothers and sisters are there. It doesn't matter what religion, what ethnic background you belong to. Just having a human heart and a human conscience and feeling the pain will be sufficient to bring you out to the rallies, whether it's an electronic rally as we are experiencing in this pandemic currently, or whether it's a physical rally that inshallah we hope to be able to continue and resume. And as I had mentioned in my previous discussion a number of years ago, that we pray for a day to come when we don't have to have these rallies, when Palestine will be free, when there will be Jews and Christians and Muslims living harmoniously as they were once upon a time. The New York Times, in an article in 1992, mentioned that when the Jews were expelled from Spain, and 100,000 plus were expelled, it was the Muslims who sent boats to go and receive them and bring them to the Muslim areas. They were living harmoniously as brothers in monotheism. All the three divine monotheistic religions, the Abrahamic religions, have lived peacefully. Why did you create the state of Israel? Why did you create the state, a Zionist state, that occupied Palestine? And not only occupied Palestine at that time, in the late 40s, but continues to annex large swaths of land, annexes land from the Syrians and from the Jordanians and from the Egyptians and from the Palestinians and more. This is a cancer that has been growing, a cancer that has been spreading, and it will continue to spread unless it is stopped by the resistance once and for all in its tracks. And this is something that, when the various Western nations blindly support the state of Israel, a beautiful book that I encourage my sisters and brothers to read. It is called They Dare to Speak Out by former Senator Paul Finley. And in that book, They Dare to Speak Out, and then a subsequent book he wrote, Deliberate Deceptions, he talks about those within the United States, within North America, who have countered the Israeli lobby, the Zionist lobby, and how they suffered, what they went through, what reputation smears they had gone through, what attacks, harassments, verbal and other abuses they went through. And yet they spoke up. And this is the same spirit we see in the Palestinians, the same spirit we see in the Kashmiris, the same spirit we see in the Rohingyas, the same spirit we see in the Cubans, the same spirit we see in the Venezuelans, that imperialism will be confronted, imperialism will be fought. Imperialism is not something that we will allow to run our lives, to rule our destinies. No, we will stand up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will stand up for justice, and we will fight these entities. We will fight these oppressors. We will fight these criminals wherever they may be and in whatever shape they come and in whatever form they come. That's why they're afraid of the International Criminal Code, because one of the things we have learned, and in Arabic there is a saying, لِكُلِّ فِرْعَوْنٍ مُوسَى, for every Pharaoh there is a Moses. And don't think, Netanyahu, you will not face your Moses and you will not face your reckoning. And do not feel, Modi, that you will not face your Moses as well. You will face them and you will see them. Today we see an uprising taking place, at least an awareness taking place in the United Kingdom, as has been mentioned before me. The Honorable Jeremy Corbyn, along with numerous others, have sent a letter, a petition to the current Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We see in Australia the Honorable Adam Brandt talking about Palestinian rights and making sure that his government does not blindly go and face whatever the Israeli Israeli slogan has been. We see throughout Europe there has been an awakening, not only amongst the people, but amongst the politicians and the parliamentarians. Throughout the Middle East, despite Al Saud, the rulers of the Hijaz, of the Arabian Peninsula, despite them warming up to the relations and benefiting, with their fulus and with all theirs, benefiting with their power bases maintained by those who themselves acknowledge that if it wasn't for us, if it wasn't for the United States, he mentioned it, the president himself, that you, O Saudi Arabian authorities, would not last even 2 weeks. We're waiting for that new day to come, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, where all these oppressors will have less than 2 weeks to go, and there will be justice, there will be peace, and there will be equality. And we pray for that day to come, inshallah, that these oppressors, who are all ideologically the same racists, the same tyrants, the dictators, and the rulers of the eras today, we will see their downfall very soon, inshallah. We are patient. We are patient because we know that these things will not happen overnight. We know that you are firmly embedded, but don't think that those embeddings are in stone. Oh, oppressors, oh, tyrants, oh, rulers with unjust policies, the day will come when you will see your Fir'aun. The day will come when you will see, as the Meccans had seen, their Muhammad coming, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that day is not far away, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مِنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. A time will come, a day will come very soon, when the oppressors will realize what they had done, and they will face the reckoning for that. And we pray for Allah to send Imam Mahdi, make us amongst the companions of the awaited Messiah, the awaited Mahdi, and inshallah along with Jesus Christ, to establish justice, equality, and truth throughout the world. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to lay the foundation for justice for the Imam Mahdi to come, inshallah. Thank you, my dear organizers. Thank you, dear brother Farman Ali, brother Siraj, and all those who work behind the scenes and who have been working so hard over the years. May Allah Ta'ala bless you all. May Allah give you the strength, the courage to continue standing up for the oppressed, for those for whom there is no voice. Inshallah, God willing, we will be their voice. Wassalamu alaikum. Jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon all of you. Thank you.
Jazakallah, Sheikh. Very well said. And as Sheikh said that right now, absolutely, we are being videoed and recorded and taped. So I just want to make a few things on the record for them to know. And it's a voice, it's a statement from all the peace-loving Canadians. And I want to be loud and clear that Netanyahu, you will see, Palestine will be free. Freedom for Palestine, justice for Palestine. Zionism is racism. Zionism is terrorism. Down with Zionism. No to Zionism, and yes to Judaism. And very well said, Sheikh, that what we are going through today, Palestine and Kashmir, is going through that every day. And if Netanyahu is not scared of the war crime, then if he is sure that he never committed any war crime, why fears? Because he knows that he committed war crimes. That's why he don't want ICC to know what things he did, and he don't want the international community to know. I would like to draw your attention towards our fourth action of the day, which is at Ramadan and all year, support BDS and boycott Israeli goods. Boycott dates from Israel. They are harvested from occupied Jordan Valley and sold illegally as product of Israel. Brands to avoid is NBF National Best Foods, Golden Valley, Bombaja Blue, La Palma, Jordan River, King Solomon, Carmel, Mehadrin, or any brands from Hadi Claim. Buy Majdood dates from Palestine through valid brands only. Brands to buy: Lara, Sidra Dates, Greenwald, Heritage, Palestine, Just Trade, Jericho Delight, Palestine Garden, Al-Art, harder to find but worth the effort for solidarity. Learn more about BDS, bdsmovement.net, that's www.bdsmovement.net in Canada, and BDS, www.bdscoalition.ca. In Canada, it's www.bdscoalition.ca. Brothers and sisters, it's our obligation, it's kind of mandatory on us to support BDS, because what we are doing today, sitting over here at home because of the COVID, or else we would be on the streets, raising our concerns, chanting for our brothers and sisters all over the world who are oppressed, especially in Palestine. It's obligatory on us. This is the minimum that we can do. That support BDS. That's the biggest threat and fear of Israel. They're trying their best to stop them. And boycott Israeli goods, which they are putting their stamp on, but it's grown in illegally and sold illegally, brought over here to us. So do your part. This is the least that we can do. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, be in this world with your body and in the hereafter with your heart and your action. I would request our moderator to play the next video, which is about operation around the world. Kashmir, Yemen, Syria, Bahrain, Palestine, you name it. Brother.
As the virus that spread around the world trapped us in our homes, you could get a small taste of what it feels like to be them. If you would minus your clean water, minus a full day of electricity, minus the sense of security in your own home where children fight bombs of Israeli planes with stones.
In the time that I've been here, children have been shot and killed. On the 30th of January, the Israeli military bulldozed the two largest water wells, destroying over half of Rafah's water supply.
Where Israeli occupiers set up parameters and zones, young Palestinian kids in handcuffs and chokeholds. I can't breathe, said the coronavirus patient, the black race in America, and the Palestinians simultaneously. And the oppression became contagious as it traveled from Kashmir to Karachi, from Sana'a to Syria, from Baghdad to Bahrain, from Nigeria to New York. As the air was sucked out of the lungs of the body of humanity long before the coronavirus hit. Each believer is like a part of the same body. When one part is hurt, the other parts feel pain, the Prophet Muhammad stated. And before your ears jump away from this message when you heard the words believer and Muhammad, before the programming they had devised that has politicized your mind to divide and make you choose a side before you even had a chance to understand the truth. By believers, we mean those who believe in the one who created all things through incredible design that only the blind could deny, and believe in the prophets he sent, God's message and teachings they would uphold and represent, that came to complete, not compete, the same religion since day one that evolved in stages from the Torah to the Bible and the Quran revealed in Ramadan, the last edition of its pages. One chain, unbroken, undivided, uncollided, the messengers all led from Adam to Abraham, Moses and Jesus finishing with Muhammad, who was the seal, and from Jerusalem he would ascend to connect with God in Jibra'il, that's Gabriel. The same way the prophets did before, unified extensions of his divine grace. And Jerusalem, the holy place, which should be the culmination of humanity and divine faith, has been hijacked by an entity of racism and hate. They claim to be Jewish, but Jews they could be never. This is not the first time people use the name of faith for their own satanic endeavors. Zionism was engineered by the secular elite, wrapped in the garb of religion, just like ISIS, which will soon both meet their defeat. If you could only peel away the tape they've wrapped around your eyes to keep you blind. But it is not just non-Muslims they have wrapped in their web of lies. One ummah of Muslim brothers and sisters still stand and divide and debate whether we pray with our arms down or our arms crossed, while the enemies plan how to cut our arms off. And with this strategy, they went two-pronged for too long. 1, divide Muslims from one another. 2, make non-Muslims hate Islam and Muslims. Lastly, colonize. It seems the embodiment of our unity, our division, our ignorance, our insight all come alive in Palestine. And like it began from Jerusalem, it will be done when the dominoes of corruption crash one by one, when the apartheid wall of Zionism will fall. embodying a world order run by a military-industrial complex, elite-run societies, corporatocracies, not a conspiracy, but a clear theory based on facts that the 1% who rule this planet are much more sinister than you can imagine or understand, and there is a reason why they want to conquer the holiest of lands. There is a reason they want to destroy Iran, the only place where true divine ethics and political leadership go hand in hand. So from Al-Aqsa to the Hijaz, united, we must stand to end the tyranny and oppression, and freedom will become contagious, can only spread through you and me. And our lungs will become clear, our sicknesses will heal, and we can once again begin to breathe. When we recognize that the liberation of the world begins when Palestine is free. Free Palestine, free Jerusalem, free the world.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to share that all these action items are being posted in the comments section on YouTube, Facebook, and it's on Al-Quds website as well. Now it's time for our fifth action item of today, which says, take it to Parliament. Again, brothers and sisters, all these action items, their websites, their tiny URL web addresses are on YouTube and Facebook, and it's on Al-Quds website as well. Take it to the Parliament, sign a formal e-petition, please. It will take a couple of minutes, maybe maximum 2 minutes. Please sign a formal e-petition, E2565, to be read in the House of Commons to lift illegal blockade of Gaza. Brothers and sisters, as Sheikh Shafiq Huda touched upon it as well, and we all know what we are going through today is what Palestinians are going through every day. So please do your part, sign these petitions. It will take a couple of minutes. Petition E2565 calls on the Canadian government to, number one, end the blockade on Gaza permanently, and number two, to align Canada's United Nations voting with the majority of the international community regarding the human rights of Palestinians and to respect international law for Palestine. Residents and citizens of Canada are invited to sign petition. Thank you to Paul Manley MP, Green Party of Canada, for being the sponsor of this petition in House of Commons. It will take 1 minute to sign the petition. With enough signatures, it will be formally read inside the House of Commons and entered into the official proceedings. Follow the link, tinyurl.com/Al-Quds e-petition Palestine. Please, brothers and sisters, do your part. It will take 1 minute for us to do our part, and it will be formally read in the House of Commons. Once Albert Einstein said, striving for social justice is the most valuable thing to do in life. That will take us to our next speaker, Brother Bahman Azad. Brother Azad is an Iranian-American peace activist who has been involved in the struggle for peace and justice in the US and around the world since 1970s. He is the executive secretary of the US Peace Council, a representative of the World Peace Council at the UN, and a member of the Administrative Committee of the United National Anti-War Coalition, UNAC. Among many organizational roles, he is also coordinator of the Hands Off Syria Coalition and chair of Iran Working Group for Veterans for Peace. Please join me to welcome Brother Bahman Azad.
Thank you, brother. Dear brothers and sisters, Allow me to thank the Al-Quds Committee in Toronto for inviting me to speak at this important gathering. On the occasion of the Al-Quds Day, I would like to express in the strongest terms our solidarity with the heroic Palestinian people and their multi-decades-long valiant struggle against occupation of their homeland and oppression of their people by the Zionist state of Israel. The theft of Palestinian land and the expansion of illegal settlements has continued for decades. The establishment of the separation wall represents the annexation of 55% of Palestinian territories occupied by Israel on the West Bank of the Jordan River, leaving about 12% of historical Palestine to the Palestinians to live. Zionist colonialism's occupation and its systematic violation of international fundamental human rights of the Palestinians has led to the approximately 5,000 Palestinian political prisoners at the hands of Israeli government occupation forces, including more than 180 children, 430 prisoners under the regime of administrative detention without charges or trial, and 700 sick prisoners, 200 of whom have chronic and serious illnesses, which put them at even greater risk of the COVID-19 pandemic spreads throughout the jails. The illegalities and crimes of Israel's Zionist regime against the Palestinian people are numerous, serious, and continue with the effective support of the greater partner of Zionism, the United States of America. One thing is quite clear: the Zionist state's crimes against Palestinian people would not have been possible without the direct support of the US imperialism, political, military, and over several $billion in financial aid to Israel every year. Without this outrageous support, the Zionist state would not have been able to withstand Palestinian resistance for a minute. So the struggle against Zionism and the Zionist state is inseparably tied to the global struggle against imperialism. Only through international solidarity will we be able to overcome both of them. Once again, we reaffirm our solidarity with the people of Palestine and their patriotic forces and express our steadfast commitment to fight for their national sovereignty, self-determination, and their inalienable human rights, both of which are being so brutally violated by the Zionist state of Israel and US imperialism. We will be with you until the final victory. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Bahman Azad, and very well said that Zionist operation would not be possible without the US imperialism, and that's what we need to stand against, and that's what the entire international community need to raise their voice and concerns. Now, yes to Judaism, no to Zionism. Zionism is racism. Palestinian kid was saying that you steal my land, you destroy my houses, you build walls around me, you blockade me in, you drop bombs on me, humiliate us all. But I am to blame because I shot a rock back. This is what the success of Israeli Zionist regime is, killing innocent children and kids in the school because they threw a rock at a big tank. I would like to invite our next speaker, Sid Ryan. Sid Ryan is a Canadian Labour leader and lifelong activist for human rights. Never shying away from a fight, he was a pioneer in championing Palestinian rights, including passing the first resolution in the world supporting the BDS campaign against Israel. Sid was awarded the Canadian Arab Federation's Social Justice Award in 2007. Sid has had a long association with the provincial and federal NDP. Last year, he published a book for his years in Canadian Labour entitled a gender version. Please join me to welcome Brother Sid Ryan.
Hello, brothers and sisters. My name is Sid Ryan. I'm the past president of the Ontario Federation of Labour in Canada, representing over 1 million workers. I was also the president of the Canadian Union of Public Employees, the Ontario region, representing over 200,000 members. In 2006, I was very proud and honoured to have presided over a convention where the CUPE delegation supported the BDS campaign. This was like 14 years ago this very weekend. And it was a tough time in Canada back then when the Israeli lobby, of course, were very upset that this organization, which at the time, by the way, was the largest organization in the world to support the BDS movement, we got a lot of grief. And as you can well imagine, how the Israeli lobby responded to a Canadian union supporting the BDS movement. I'm proud to say, since then, there's been dozens of local unions, provincial unions, and national unions supporting the BDS movement. So we are making progress, there's no question about it. And on this weekend, where we remember Nakba and what actually happened to Palestinians and how they were chased off their land and they're deprived of their properties. And today, where we see them being slaughtered, being shot, being subjected to the most heinous of crimes, war crimes, it is a sad reflection of how the world sits by and allows the Israelis to take advantage of the Palestinians. However, being Irish and knowing a little bit about occupations, because our country went through 800 years of British occupation until 1916, when the Irish decided to rebel, and brothers like James Connolly, who helped to lead the movement against the British and themselves became martyrs when James Connolly and his comrades were actually shot to death by the British for daring to try to kick the Brits out of Ireland. Well, here we are, that was 1916, so a little over 100 years ago, we gained our independence, and today it's a flourishing nation. So there's no doubt in my mind, none whatsoever, that the Palestinians will one day be free. There is no question that we, as nations around the world, will one day be flying and enjoying the beaches of Gaza. We will be celebrating with Palestinians your freedom, your nation, your will and your determination to continue this fight. 72 years later, I am so proud of Palestinians for what they have done and how they've managed to resist. And we have an old saying in Ireland that the Republican movement use, and that's Tucky ar law, and that's the Gaelic language, our ancient Irish language, for our day will come. There is no doubt in my mind that Palestinians will be free and that their day will come. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters.
Thank you so much, Brother Sid Ryan, and absolutely, and there is no doubt that Palestine will be free. And it is sad reflection how the world sits back and see what's happening in Palestine by the Zionist regime. Brothers and sisters, it's time for our sixth action of the day, which is donate to Gaza via Canadian charities, taxable and tax deductible. This Ramadan, direct your zakat to Palestinians via 2 Canadian charitable institutions, each with a long history of good works in West Bank and Gaza. International Development Relief Fund, www.idrf.com/zakat. On the donation form, look for designation and choose zakat Palestine. Islamic Relief Canada, which is www.islamicreliefcanada.org/appeals/Palestine. This Ramadan donation to Palestine are automatically doubled to a total of 500,000. Thank you for your generous donations at a time when many Western regimes are cutting funding to UNRWA in Palestine. Your help is more important than ever, brothers and sisters. If we look around us, what's happening with us, what's going on in Canada, even us being very safe and lucky Canadians, what's going on with us, imagine what will be going in Gaza and in Palestine with all these Zionist activities happening over there with the month of Ramadan, pandemic of COVID-19, and even without COVID-19, Israel Zionist regime do not give them clean water. They always try to block the medical aids or whatever they can, whatever is in their power. And brothers and sisters, we are running a banner as well, treasurer for aqc@gmail.com. Please look into the slides running on your YouTube channels below the channel as well. Now it's time for our next speaker, Paul Larodi. Paul Larodi is a political activist and a longtime organizer in the pro-Palestinian movement based in San Francisco Bay Area. He is involved with international solidarity movement and was one of the founders of the Free Gaza movement and the Free Palestine movement. He also sailed on the Gaza Freedom Flotilla in 2010, the year when the Mavi Marmara was attacked. Paul continues to be outspoken supporter for the liberation of Palestinians. Please join me to welcome Brother Paul Larodi.
Dear friends, we are all friends of Palestine and Jerusalem, Al-Quds, and we are all in solidarity with Palestinians, including those who have been expelled from Palestine, as well as those who have not yet been expelled from Palestine. But I have to ask you, my friends, what is the value of our friendship? What is the point of being friends of Palestine if Palestine no longer exists? If Palestinians no longer live in Palestine and cannot return there? If Masjid al-Aqsa and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre disappear from the face of the earth? What is the value of our friendship? I'm sorry to tell you that this is the future, unless you and I and everyone who cares will take action, drastic action, to restore justice to Al-Quds, to Palestine, and to all Palestinians. But how? What can we do? What can we do to return the stolen land to its rightful owners and to make Palestine Palestinian again? I suggest that we start to think in new directions. The thieves and the murderers who have been robbing Palestinians of their country will not stop until they are treated as pariahs throughout the world. Let us make Zionist citizens of so-called Israel unwelcome anywhere in the world. Let us refuse to buy their goods, to allow their ships to dock, or their airplanes to land. Let us make pariahs of their supporters as well. Let us reject entertainers and athletes who accept invitations from racist Zionist organizations. We must treat them as we would treat any thieves and murderers. The point is that if we are serious about restoring justice to Palestine, we must be the agents of that justice and to do whatever is necessary to make it happen. Anything less than that, no matter what we are doing or have done, is simply not enough, because in the end, we will fail, and we must not fail.
Thank you so much, brother, for the great words, and it's so true. that what is the value in our friendship if Palestine, God forbid, does not exist, or if the Palestinians are not allowed to go back. And absolutely, it's our obligation, it's mandatory, and it's the only way to prove our friendship to our Palestinian brothers and sisters if we unwelcome the citizens of Zionist regime. And as we have been saying, we always been saying, and that yes to Judaism, no to Zionism. Zionism is racism, and down with Zionism. Once I read it in one of the posters for, it was made in solidarity for Palestinians, where it said that an apple fell to the ground around, and Newton discovered gravity. Thousands of Palestinians fall, and no one has discovered humanity. It's a shame on the international and rich countries of the world, especially from the West End, that they see what's happening in Palestine, and nobody has the courage to say a word against the Palestinian, for the Palestinian and against the Zionist regime. So that brings us to the end of our event for today. Just wanted to let all the brothers and sisters know that on behalf of Quds Committee, we are in midst of coordinating with our police so we can gift masks as a gesture of thanks and appreciation for their hard work and in keeping us safe and protected. Brothers and sisters, thank you for joining us for this historic event. Thank you for, thanks to our amazing speakers and spoken words performers. We appreciate their energy and wisdom that they shared with us today. This rally is shareable on YouTube. Please share it with your friends and family. Also, encourage them to take action. And these action items can be accessed anytime via the links in the comment section in YouTube and on the website. Brothers and sisters, we wish you happy rest of the Ramadan, and we wish you happy Eid next week, inshallah. We will meet again at the next year Quds Rally Day on the streets of Toronto. We will not stop until Palestine is free and Zionist regime is vanished from the land, which is practically, technically the land of Palestinians. It should be called Palestine, not Israel. We will conclude our rally by raising the Palestinian flag and national anthem in solidarity with the Palestinian state and oppressed people of Palestine. Thank you so much. Be safe out there. Take care, and long live Canada, long live Palestine. Thank you.
موطني الجلال والجمال والسناء والبهاء في رضاه والحياة والنجاة والهناء والرجاء في هواه هل أرى سالما منعما وغانما مكرما سالما منعما وغانما